When my son was born, and whatever the reason was, I was curious as to ask how he may develop. And as inquisitive as I am, I start to ask questions. Typically, people say kids ask lots of questions, but in my case, I was asking the question, like, why do you ask that question? Was my question. I wasn't trying to be mean, but I was curious about the curiosity of kids. And I also remember we had a good laugh when I had a seminar about continuous improvement. And there's a discussion every now and then, but my job was empowerment and for people to solve the problem by themselves and not to be told what to do and just do the job like a machine, because I don't think it makes sense. So, yes, I remember that one time they made a little gift for me, which is like stuff you put on the desk to keep the pencil or the fountain pen, whatever that was. And that little gift says, "So what?" with a question mark. Because I have been tenacious to ask the question. They are asking the question, then I ask, why do you think so? Or if you do that, then what? Keep asking to get to the root of the question. In Toyota, they have the system called Why Fives, 5 Whys, which is ask a question of why many times. If there's a problem, first question is why there's a problem. They say because of this or that, and then you ask the question on the why. So they have to go deeper into the root of the problem. If you ask 5 whys, typically you get a fairly good answer, and therefore the problem doesn't happen. So my work, the way I made my living, was to ask lots of questions. What's your mission? If you are the president of the mini company of your responsibility, what's your mission? Who are the customers? Who are the bankers? Who are the people? What's the key objectives of your operation? What are the important things to satisfy the customer? Do you talk with them? How often? Can you explain to them if there's a problem, what you're doing? It's not easy because people are conditioned to do things. And they often tell, the management often tell, your job is this, to do this. Just do it, don't ask the question. So one of the reasons why I moved from Japan to the US is to know that there was General Motors employee telling to Tom Peters, who was the consultant, and he was saying to Tom, I know I'm getting laid off because we are not making good cards. I worked here for 15 years, but in that 15 years, I've have never been asked. I have never been asked any suggestion. And I thought that doesn't make sense because the potential of that employee was not utilized, their skills, ideas, and all of that. So whether in the company or my children, I asked the question. So back to one company, which is I think they had almost 400,000 employees around the world. We had a seminar, and as I finished and I received this "so what" gift, just like their memory of me, and I laughed at that. And we went to the lunchroom to have lunch together, and there may be maybe 10, 15 people walking together. And one guy asked a question to me, and I asked back the question, "Why do you ask that question?" I was serious. But they all laughed. There was a case of another seminar. This was in Taiwan. At the end of the seminar, the guy came with this picture drawn and shared with us. There was a picture of a bird in the cage, but there's a door open. Professor Suzaki, he told me, I wasn't the professor, but it doesn't matter. They're very respectful. Professor Suzaki, I understand your message, and I like the idea of the mini company and self-management, solving the problem. I have a group of people to work, and then what I feel at the end of the seminar is like I'm a bird in the cage and the door is open. So you're saying I am to figure out, I feel like I still am a bird in the cage. In the cage is comfortable, but you're saying you have to liberate yourself out of the cage to explore the world and do whatever you can. But I still feel like a cage. I hear that the outside is wonderful, but I don't know how to fly out. So, Professor Suzaki, what should I do? And I asked the question, back to the question, what do you think? I don't remember the reaction of it to my answer with that question, but what I remember is that after that discussion and the seminar, we went out for lunch together as a group. And this is in Taiwan. And we found that the lunch at the time happened to be a pigeon, roasted pigeon. So people laughed. Be careful when you fly out. You may be like a pigeon roasted and all of that. Why I'm talking like this? Actually, this is in the middle of the night. But I was thinking why we asked the question. When the universe was born, Big Bang, and when things start to happen, as a part of the process, we are born, and as a part of the process of evolution, out of the Garden of Eden, we start to ask questions. As much as my son is to answer the question, to live a life well and self-managing, I ask the question back. It all goes back to how the universe was born, and we are born, and how we evolved, and to use the brain, and to ask the question. One of the questions is, where did we come from, and where do we go? That's a philosophical question. Many of us may ask such a question. Actually, I remember when I was little, maybe 8 years old, I was going back and forth to the elementary school. I remember walking and asking, yes, I am supposed to die sometime. I was a little kid, and I couldn't solve it. Why I died. So I was asking, am I really dying, or how can I not to die, or something like that. As little as I was asking the question and hoping that I don't die. Actually, one of the reasons why I am talking like this is originated by a man named Genshichi. I was reading, or actually listening to YouTube. This is in Japanese. And he wrote a book called Shinja, what's the name of it? Shinja Meguri. Shinja is believer, and the Meguri means looking around. So this is the time, I think about 200 years ago. He's like a peasant, but the environment is such that he was asking why he passes away, he dies, and he felt very uncomfortable about it. So he couldn't stand, and he heard about Shin Buddhism, and there are those who are enlightened, so to speak. They have a simple way of teaching, or Amida's Wo, but he couldn't solve the puzzle. So he couldn't stand, and he decided to look around. And there are those believers of Shin. And he decided to go wherever it takes, wherever in Japan. So he started to move around without knowing where to go, because the desire to know the answer was so strong. So he just left the village and visited the temple, or wherever he visited, asked the question, who is the believer, or who has enlightened? So without knowing where he started, and after visiting many people, he wrote a book about experience. And one part I was reading is for him to visit a person that he heard, because he doesn't know where to go to find the person, but by asking the question, who may be the one, and keep asking. So he came to one person, and he gave the answer to Genshichi. The answer is in Amida Buddha. He will save you. And this guy was to die in 3 days or so when Genshichi visited him. And this person, I forgot the name, was telling there are 4 or 5 people Genshichi should go and meet. So that's how he went through this traveling in Japan from one person to the next, maybe the Zen monk and another person, and stay however long. And he also wrote all the story of what happened. So that's how he ended up in getting the answer. The answer all of them said, and all of them had this sense of awakening. And the awakening is that Amida would save you. So Genshichi may ask, how can I believe it? I don't know all the detail of the question he asked. But he may ask a question like, how can you feel so confident that the Amida would help you? And their answer is, you ask the question to Amida. I'm happy with that. So it's like where you're coming from, the beginningless of the beginning in the universe. And my answer may be, well, it's the law of the universe that started to happen after the Big Bang. Or maybe there's no Big Bang, it doesn't matter, I call it the law of the universe. And then I ask back to myself, what is law of the universe? The answer is, that's how the universe is functioning. And then I realize, okay, I'm the manifestation of the universe. So if I'm the universe itself, I can resolve this question or something like that. So words, questions, why and how, a tricky business originating from the beginning of the universe or beginning of using our logic. We may get lost if we are not clear about it. But if we really know who we are and why, and that's awakening. In my case, I had the awakening, and the answer was, thy will be done. And I came up with that answer maybe about 12 years ago. This is after 10 years after my awakening. And the thy will be done is like the law of the universe will be the answer. So it's like a Zen puzzle. And in Zen, they don't answer the question. In Shin Buddhism, they answer the question with the vow of Amida, that you'll be saved if you say Namo Amida Butsu. Everywhere we look around, there are lots of questions. Why we do what we do. And the root of that questioning is the spirituality or the religious question, the beginning of the teaching, originated from the time when we got kicked out of the Eden. So go back to the Garden of Eden. Be with the law of nature. I think it's time for me to go back to sleep. Sleep at peace. Namavidabatsu. Good night. Have fun. Thank you. Any questions? No. That's good. By the way, about the questioning and questioning becoming my business to work with the companies and try to transform, it was really fun. Not easy, but once you start to play this game of what we can do individually and as a group, I was remembering this incident. I have here a cross pen, which is very expensive. I may not be that expensive, but could be $30, $40, $50, I don't know. I have one cross ballpoint pen by a group of people. I was so impressed. At one point there was the company's celebration of improvement, and there were a bunch of people in one of the auditorium, and one group was nominated and won the prize. In that group, I forgot the name of the person. Auri, I think, was the name, a lady who came up to the stage, and I was there. She brought this cross ballpoint pen to me as a gift, and I was surprised why. But she said something like she appreciated the fact that the group of people worked together, made lots of improvement, and they were happy about it. So that was the decision they made, to chip in some money to buy this ballpoint pen as a gift for me. I was surprised and didn't know how to respond, but with all the appreciation, and was happy that they're happy. There are people who may not get paid so much. I knew I'm getting paid doing my job because that's the job I chose to do. I don't know where they are, but I have lots of stories like that I remember. That's an enriching experience to work together to solve the problem, have fun. If we can do that, that's a wonderful thing. Not just at work, but anything we do. Just a little memory. Thank you. It may be redundant, but the key point of my questioning or the message is that we have answer within ourselves, how difficult it, whatever the situation is. There's the empowerment. You can say that's the department of the universe, will of the universe. Otherwise, we don't exist. So if we get to the root of why we exist, we have all the answer. Why we are here, where we came from, where to go. It's not the children's story. It's the story for us.